one of the reasons that Colorado has become more of a capital D Democratic state is, yes, I like to think the Democrats have governed well, but frankly, even more than that, the Republicans have marginalized themselves with that kind of rhetoric that just turns off mainstream Colorado voters.
Yeah. How you doing, Governor? Thanks for doing this.
I'm doing great, and welcome back to our prodigal son returns. It's great to have you back, Tim.
Don't get my mother any ideas about me coming home. All right, I want to have a little feelings to start. Can we talk about our feelings for a second?
I suppose so.
I don't know if do you love talking about your feelings? Not really.
You know, I think the folks in the audience, so my mother, the poet, right, she writes about her feelings, so she did that for all of us. My mother, Susan Polish.
Okay. Well, I'll talk about my feelings then, and then you can decide whether or not to weigh in. So me and the governor just came from the Pride Kickoff, what was it called? Pink Party?
Yep.
Supporting One Colorado. You should support One Colorado. And I was just sitting there watching him, and it's all these gay people in their pink outfits and some drag queens. And I'm thinking, then he went up and welcomes all of them, and I'm thinking we have a gay married governor with kids speaking to a group of entirely gays, and here I am sitting here in Colorado, and I was thinking back to Teen Tim, like Amendment 2 and Matthew Shepard. I was like, if you would have showed me a video of this at age 16, I think I would have thought that Independence Day aliens would have felt more likely as a 20-year arc. So do you ever take a moment to think about that, appreciate that?
Well, first of all, we're excited you are back here and hopefully get to enjoy Pride Weekend with your family, with 500,000 of your closest friends.
Don't you worry.
It is exciting to reflect on. I mean, we're really focused on a Colorado for all. That means a place for really everybody, no matter who you are, no matter who you love, but also, no matter your race, no matter how long your family's been here, and that's what we're trying to bring about. But yes, there's been tremendous progress, not just in Colorado, but nationally and internationally. Thailand just the other day recognized same-sex marriage as the third country in East Asia after Nepal and Taiwan. If we're allowed to call Taiwan a country.
We are. And at the Bulwark, we are.
At the Bulwark, I'm glad. Get ready for being sanctioned by China. No, I think it's wonderful. And of course, when when the pendulum swings towards progress, there's always that pushback you hear, and we still see some of that, of course, to this day. But overall, I think it's a much better time to be able to grow up and be a little different than others and feel loved and respected.
So you don't think about little Jared playing video games, looking at Link,
well, I love
some
video
feelings.
Games. I love video
games. Don't think back
on that. I still play video games.
I know. Speaking of the people there's still some pushback, our friends in the Colorado Republican Party, they put out a press release saying that we should burn all the pride flags. They said that the LGBT community is part of a demonic realm trying to harm our children. I don't know about if it's our children, like yours and my children, or all of our children. With enemies like these, who needs friends, Governor? What's happening over there?
Well, it's one of the reasons that Colorado has become more of a capital D Democratic state is, yes, I like to think the Democrats have governed well, but frankly, even more than that, the Republicans have marginalized themselves with that kind of rhetoric that just turns off mainstream Colorado voters.
Yeah.
And, it was offensive even to the Republican congressional nominee from this district, who happens to be gay himself, who now finds himself in a position where his own party was saying, burn those flags. It was also telling, I heard from a conservative Republican commissioner, a friend of mine from Southern Colorado, and they did, they condemned this. And I shared with him that similarly, I spoke out, this was probably a year or two ago, when somebody was trying to, in a school, prevent kids from ringing "Don't Tread on Me" flags to the school. I said, that's, freedom of speech. So, but this concept of burning flags or icons is just very anti-American in its core, turns people off, above and beyond, of course, the anti-LGBT ramifications, just trying to say you're against that kind of freedom of expression really rubs Coloradans the wrong way.
Yeah. What about the school stuff? Your opponent in the governor's race was concerned about we were grooming our children. I think that she was concerned that there were a lot of non-binary children that were identifying as cats in the classroom. They're meowing. They're peeing in a litter box in the class. It seems like a big problem in the
That
state.
was
Have
when
you
I
cleaned that up at all?
That was
since
when I
then?
realized I had won the election. When a month from when ballots dropped, that's what my opponent pivoted to. I was like, I can take a day and spend it with my kids. I got this.
All right. Let's do a little national politics. That's enough gay stuff for today. You did a tweet today giving some advice to Joe Biden. It was a very long tweet, so I'm not going to read all of it, but it was a 7-point advice. You said he should look to the future. Number 1, every American should be able to go to kindergarten at no cost and preschool. 2, compare and contrast Trump's terrible tariff agenda. 3, talk about how healthcare is broken and it should be more affordable. 4, tout your bipartisan permitting reform view. Okay. 5, show enthusiasm for renewing middle-class tax cuts. 6, ignore Trump's antics. 7, go get him.
That's hard. It's hard to ignore his antics. I get it. What I think that the president should do, and it's the way I.
You preempted my question about how that was not possible to ignore.
Isn't
his
that
antics.
wonderful? I love doing that to reporters.
Okay.
Go ahead. What's your question?
No, don't do it.
What I was going to say is that, I mean, you really should. Every election is about the future. It's not about the past. And I think what President Biden needs to do is not talk about what he's done. And of course, we know what we've done, and we can. And he likes to talk about that. But the challenge is, what do you want to do? What will you do for the American people if you're elected for another 4 years? I gave him some ideas. If he has others, that's fine. But really talk about the future and your vision for how you can make life better for everyday Americans. And so I hope that he focuses on the future in the debate and also in the campaign. Doesn't get caught up in Trump's antics, and that's hard. I get it, because that guy's a walking antic. I mean, I don't know what he'll say insane stuff, but you say, and I've run against people that have said crazy stuff. You cited that, and you just ignore it. You just don't. I didn't get into a debate about whether cats were in our schools. I said I'm focused on free preschool. I'm focused on renewable energy. I'm focused on middle class tax cuts. I mean, I just stayed focused on what we were doing, not the nutty stuff.
So I think permitting reform is very important, and I'm for it. It's very important. I don't know that that's going to win over the voters as much as pointing out how crazy Donald Trump is. And I don't know that does Joe Biden have a good message for his second term?
I don't think Joe Biden is the one who should be pointing out how crazy Donald Trump is. It's self-evident. Donald Trump does that himself. Certainly others can do that. What Joe Biden needs to do is talk about his vision for America and what he wants to do over the next 4 years.
Which is what, do you think?
Well, I mean, again, I can tell, I gave him some advice, but I'd like to hear, from him. But I mean, he supports these things that I put in there. He supports, it was dropped from some of the bills, preschool and kindergarten for every kid. He does support, more trade than Donald Trump, whose policies would lead to more inflation and hurt the middle class. So, I mean, these are all things that you can run on and talk about. And I hope that the president really paints an exciting vision about what America will look like and how people will be better off in 4 years if he has a chance to serve again.
I wanted to go to Colorado a little more than the national stuff, since we're Colorado people. We're here. I had a question proposed to me. I don't think they knew that they were proposing the question, from someone who may or may not be in the crowd, who's close to me, that may or may not be Republican-ish. And the question went something like this: ask the governor, we're a little concerned that Colorado might turn into California. High taxes, high regulation, high cost of gas, high cost of housing, lots of traffic, not as good skiing. Are you? What would you say to that? That there's some concern that Colorado's moving in California direction. Do you like the California model? Do you think that there's a difference?
In my State of the State last year, I really focused on how we can avoid becoming like California, particularly around the high cost of housing and crowded highways and congestion. There's different elements of what California means to different people, but I think Democrats and Republicans, liberals and conservatives agree that we don't want to be California. What we talked about, and what a big challenge in our state is, the average cost of a home in the Denver metro area now about $600,000 statewide. It's lower than that, but still went up 30-40% over the last few years. That's a problem. Still inexpensive by California standards. There's cities in California where the average home price is $1 million. But that's why we took action to make it easier to build new homes, reduce regulation, cut red tape. We cut the income tax 3 times since I've been governor, twice by the voters, once through the legislature. So, no, I really think that we're on a different path in many ways. It doesn't, we're always happy to take good ideas from any state, from California, Texas, New York. They all have things we try to learn from, the laboratories of democracy. But we don't aspire to be a particular state other than a better, more perfect Colorado.
You took some digs at, last time I interviewed you, did take some digs at California. Like what, when you look at the more progressive agenda.
It's popular in Colorado to bash California and Texas. It's not a partisan thing. I mean, it's just popular to bash California and Texas.
All right. So it's smart to do popular things as a politician. But are there specific, when you look at the kind of California progressive agenda, are there specific, and you mentioned cutting taxes or regulations, are there specific things you look at and say, this is too harmful, this is not smart?
In which state?
In California.
Well, I don't follow everything their legislature does. It would drive my stress
generally.
level through the roof. It's stressful enough following what our own legislature does here in Colorado.
I bet.
So, I mean, of course, there's things they would do, and Governor Newsom has even vetoed some of them that they've done. And again, we try to look at best practices in different states and find what might work here. Certainly around housing, there's examples of both Republican and Democratic states removing barriers to housing. California has done some good work, so has Montana. Where they've, again, basically allowed the zoning for more affordable units to be built closer to transit, allowing for accessory dwelling units by right. So we just got that done here, which is wonderful. So, I mean, just so you shouldn't have to spend tens of thousands of legal bills and fight City Hall to add a needed housing unit that you can rent out to somebody who needs a home. So this is the kind of stuff we're focused on.
How do you balance the kind of those questions? Obviously, you need more housing in Colorado. I think everybody agree. Not everybody. Most people agree with that. The ADU policy and that stuff that you put forth makes a lot of sense. How do you balance that against concerns about growth? Traffic going up to Vail is too bad. I can't even go up to the mountains to ski.
Well, it's really about how we grow. So that's very much a part of our discussions. What we want to have is a greater opportunity to live close to job centers, near transit. We're working on implementing front-range passenger rail, improving the bus transportation system, more opportunities to live close to job centers rather than exurban sprawl, further and further out, longer commutes, more cars on the highway. So
Highlands Ranch hardest hit.
What's that?
Highlands Ranch hardest.
There you go. But I mean, that's kind of the bad part of the California model, right? Like you're in the LA area, it's not rush hour, 4:30 to 5:30 like here. It's rush hour like 3 to 8. I mean, you might have like all day. So, I mean, this is what we want to avoid, and we do that by really smart growth and making sure that people have the opportunity to live close to jobs. Most people don't want to commute 45 minutes to work each way. They do that because they can't afford a home closer to where their job is.
What about the energy side of things? Like, obviously, we talked about permitting reform. You want to be able to do more renewables. You want to be able to build more. How do you balance that with, okay, we also need existing access to natural gas. There's a big debate over here about fracking, whether you can frack in Colorado.
So, permitting reform is broad, sweeping. We've done some at the state level, some need more. The reason we have this discussion nationally is the federal government owns close to 40% of Colorado, Bureau of Land Management, U.S. Forest Service. So anything on their land, federal land, we have to go through a very long, arduous bureaucratic process. President Biden has wanted to expedite that. He's done some administrative actions to do that, but they haven't been able to do it legislatively. But here in Colorado, for those who follow it, we used to historically, we've had something called the Colorado Oil and Gas Commission. It permitted oil and gas. What we have now added to their responsibility is first putting health and safety first for oil and gas siting, but they also now cite renewable energy, deep well geothermal, which we're hoping to grow here in Colorado. We just had a summit yesterday. We're very excited about adding geothermal energy to our mix, the heat beneath our feet. That was my initiative at the Western Governors Association, as well as more transmission. So as we move towards a more renewable grid, we need to be able to move electricity around better, and we need to make sure that we're able to tie into other states for interstate transmission.
All right. I want to, when we first talked, the reason why we did our first interview was because I was stuck at home during COVID and I was watching, I had nothing else to do. So I'm on Twitter and I'm just watching videos. And you got into a fight with maybe a couple of the reporters here about masking. And there's this big debate that was happening. And you were saying we need to balance the questions about public safety and distancing with questions of individual freedom and autonomy and, encouraging that. And I think that I think that in retrospect, it seems like your balance on that was a lot better than someone that maybe DeSantis and the Newsom side of that debate. There's an issue that has a similar dynamic right now, which is immigration, right? And the people coming to the state. Where there's this question about public safety, is everyone that's coming vetted versus you want people to be able to come to the state, right? Like you want freedom. And, maybe there was a time, particularly a couple months ago, where there were some people in Colorado feeling like this is out of balance, right? Like we have all these migrants coming here and we don't know what to do with them. How are you thinking about that? How do you deal with that issue?
Well, it's complicated. We could do a whole half-hour discussion.
Let's
on
do it.
Immigration.
All right. I got fun rapid-fire questions at the end, but they're rapid.
So our fundamental frustration, I think, with the federal government is they're the only ones that can secure the border. They're also the only ones that can grant work permits to people. We would love to be able to grant work permits, and we would be able to use that. If there's a way to get that to the state level, we would do that. What's frustrating is when we have people
Why don't you
that
just look the other way?
What's that?
No, let them work and not enforce.
Well, again, it's federal enforcement that everybody's worried about. So, we fundamentally, if there's people here that want to come and work and have work permit, we need them. We actually have 1.6 job openings for every unemployed Coloradan. We need folks that want to work. But the mismatch is if they're coming without permission to work and there's a year until they get it or indefinite, what do we do during that time? And so that's what we're dealing with some of the Venezuelan migrants. But many of them now have permission to work. They're getting integrated into Colorado. So, again, I think there's room for bipartisan immigration reform, securing the border, workforce authorization. It just has been elusive for too long, and it would benefit our economy tremendously.
I'm sorry, what you're saying just doesn't make sense to me because I've been watching a lot of Fox lately. And I'm sorry, we have... the border is totally uncontrolled. There are hordes of people coming into town. There are a lot of people who need jobs that can't get them. That's not right?
So we do need better border security, of course. At the same time, we need to make sure that people that are part of our economy and have jobs are able to do it legally, and that we're able to support our economic growth and support our ag industry, support our hospitality industry. These things are all important, and we can figure it all out together.
Okay. I have a couple other balancing. That's pretty good. I have a couple other balancing public safety with freedom questions, and I'm going to read you some recent comments from conservative influencers online. I spend a lot of time reading conservative influencers online. Good. I'm sorry, you have to govern. I'm just a podcast host. All right, I've got all afternoon to just kind of read Breitbart. Here's one. This guy, Mike Davis, he wants to put me in a gulag, by the way, just as a quick aside. He said that Colorado just made me wait 72 hours to buy guns. Does Colorado make people wait 72 hours to get trans pills? We must fight every gun restriction. The left's goal is to disarm us so they can control us. Are you trying to control Mike Davis?
We have a 3-day waiting period. We do the background checks during that time, and it works fine. And for folks who are transgender, the process of getting the diagnosis and the prescription takes a lot longer than 3 days. It takes many months.
Really? You can't just trans like
sessions.
that?
No, you can't. You can't just trans like that. So I think the waiting period is quite a bit longer.
I guess I have another funny one, but we should be serious for a second if we're going to talk about the gun issue. Because there were real gun reform accomplishments that you got after the horrible shooting at Club Q. Yeah. And talk about those. And unfortunately, Colorado has had a disproportionate this reality when it comes to these mass shootings.
We did the 3-day waiting period to make sure we get the background checks done. Also, in the spur of the moment, anger purchases. It was very strange. You had to be, you could be 18 and buy a rifle, but to buy a pistol, you need to be 21. So we just made it 21 for guns. You can buy it with your parents at 18, of course, and your parents can go hunting with a kid at 15. But to just walk into a gun store and buy it, we said, same age as alcohol, 21.
Do you consider 25? I know some 21-year-old boys, and I don't know.
Well, you know some 18-year-old ones too, but. So we're just trying to do common sense stuff and protects our Second Amendment rights. Yeah, a red flag law, if somebody's having a mental health crisis, there ought to be a legal way to temporarily remove access to their firearms. Domestic abuse. These are all common sense measures, and no single one is a pardon the pun silver bullet. But I think together, do they absolutely have a positive impact on improving public safety? Yes.
Yeah, and I mean, you can have libertarian streak tendency that you don't feel uncomfortable about any of those.
No, I think they all fund. I mean, I don't know the total percentage, but I mean, 40, 50% of Coloradans are gun owners, and none of this interferes with anybody who wants to have a gun for home defense or sport or hunting or whatever purposes they have it for.
Here's another one from my friend at the Breaking Points podcast. I don't know if you're a viewer of that. They did pretty well on YouTube. Weed. This is about weed. Weed ruined the great city of Denver and the great state of Colorado. These stores are all going bankrupt, and the promised tax revenue is drying up. ER visits are booming. The air is polluted. Traffic accidents soaring. Sad.
Wow. So, they're blaming everything on that, aren't they? I think overall cannabis legalization has been great for our state. I've long been a supporter of that. I've been getting to that.
Couple guys on gummies in the crowd right now.
Well, just to get it out of the underground illegal economy, the policy of prohibition has failed. Getting it out of the hands of drug dealers to legal regulated businesses, it has generated hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue. People are legally employed in the sector. Yes, some of them have gone out of business. That's called capitalism, right? I mean, of course. So I don't know what that person's saying. He's saying they all should have stayed in business.
Yeah. I don't know. I think saying it's bad that there's so many of them. On that point, I guess another observation I've had talking to you over the last kind of hour is just like the tenor, the tone of your kind of conversations about talking about Republicans and Republican views, like feels like it's from another plane of existence, that it's not our national politics. And you're talking about how you talk to Ken Buck all the time, and oh man, Scott McGinnis. And I was saying, Scott McGinnis has gone kind of crazy. And you're like, I don't know, no, he seems okay to me. I was like, well, he's for Trump. And you're like, well, they're all for Trump, right?
Right.
Like, you're extolling the virtues of capitalism. You're talking about gun ownership. Like, why do you think it's so unique here, like your ability to kind of talk across party lines? Like, why is that able to happen here where it's not other places?
The plurality of most Coloradans aren't Republicans or Democrats. Unaffiliated are by far our biggest group, almost a majority. I think now 46, 47% of plurality, but pretty soon unaffiliated will be a majority of Colorado. It's already a majority of people under 30. And so we kind of look at both parties and just say, talk about them, and both parties have ideas that are good and both parties have ideas that are bad, but mostly people just want a positive vision for what will make life better.
Yeah, it seems like almost some of your, all right, a couple claps for making life better.
Good ideas from the left, from the right, from the center, from up, from down. A good idea is a good idea. Let's take it and let's move forward and make life better.
What about people who are concerned? So, I lived through this. There was someone who said to me, Tim, like you lived through this process where, you were out here when Bill Owens was governor, and there were normal mainstream Republicans, and the crazies took over the party. Now they want to burn pride flags, and like that's what's happening to the Democrats now, right? Like the normies are in charge of the Democratic Party, but the DSA and the pro-Hamas crowd and the socialists and the far left are taking over the Democratic Party. Like, what do you say to that?
I don't see it. I mean, obviously it's interesting because in European multi-party parliamentary democracies, they have 8 parties, right?
Right.
6 parties, 10 parties. We have these small parties, but basically we have 2 very broad ones. And so, somehow on the Republican one, you have everything from kind of authoritarian neo-fascist to libertarian to traditional conservative. You got all that stuff.
Yeah.
On the Democratic
Concerning
side,
amount on the neo-fascist side of things.
You got them over there now.
Concerning percentage.
No, you got them over there. Yeah. On the Democratic side, you have center left, you center right, center, and you have some of the socialist folks that might say I'm voting Democrat because they're better than Republicans. So they're both broad Big Tent parties. You got to be when you're functioning in a 2-party system.
All right, we're going to move to rapid fire. Our time's running short. Are you ready?
Sure.
Are you prepared? Are you sure? These are going to be a little off the wall, okay? And you haven't given me any feelings yet, so I might add one more feelings question at the end. Famously, you've never smoked weed, despite being what were you called, a godfather of cannabis? Did Wes Moore call? I think Wes Moore called you that today, despite the fact that you've never smoked weed. But if you were to break your cherry tonight, What would your dream blunt rotation be? Who would you want to smoke and who would you want to smoke with?
So that was quite a scandal for me to come out of the closet as never having smoked
weed. I'm sorry to break that.
You outed me.
Sorry.
You outed me, Tim.
My apologies.
I would go with Dolly Parton.
Dolly would be good. No one else? You don't want to join? And it's a rotation. You kind of need a third person for that to work. I know you've never done this before, and me neither, Mom. But you need three
the
for
new
a
president
rotation.
of Argentina seems pretty cool.
Really, Javier Milei? I don't know.
Yeah.
He might creep me out in a blunt rotation.
You could lend me some of his hair.
The
I could
chops.
Use
I don't know. Okay, we'll see. The people didn't like that choice as much. All right. As somebody that's libertarian, is there something else you think should be made that's illegal now that should be made legal or decriminalized? I don't know, like Molly or like full stripping at strip clubs, or just giving you some ideas.
I mean, Colorado's already we're doing that now with mushrooms and yeah. So we're doing the mushroom therapy and yeah. So that's happening.
Anything else?
I don't know. You name it. I mean, generally speaking, if something doesn't hurt other people and it's somebody's choice, it ought to be respected.
Where are you at just on like kind of decriminalizing nonviolent crimes more? Like, do you feel like we're over jailing?
Well, I mean, careful with the word nonviolent because that can include something like theft, right? I
Sure.
mean, and car theft and stuff from stores. I mean, those of course should be harsh criminal penalties. But I mean, kind of what you do in the privacy of your own home, that's a different category, and I would show more latitude in that. But in practice, we're not generally, going in and arresting people for what they're doing in their own home. I hope we're not.
Hunter.
But I mean,
Hunter's getting arrested for
What's that?
Hunter Biden's getting arrested for something he did in his own home.
No, I wasn't it for lying on the gun form.
Yeah, what I mean.
Well,
I guess he
it's
wasn't
for
in his home, but it wasn't like he was waving the gun around in public or anything. He just lied on the form.
Yeah.
It's tough. But do you think Hunter should go to jail for that? Do you think that's
well? I mean, just like with former President Trump, I mean, I have confidence in the justice system to adjudicate it, and when people violated the law, they should be held accountable, whether they're a former president or a president's son.
All right, I have one final rapid fire, but do you have any, final pitch for my listeners? Everybody here likes Colorado, but this will be airing on Monday's audio podcast, like a Colorado pitch. Do you want more people here? Or are you kind of like, at this point, you're like, anything else you're doing? A final
We
word?
got a great state. I mean, we got a great quality of life, and of course, we're part of victims of our own success. That's why housing prices have gone up and people have sought to live here. But really, we always aspire to be an even better state, and I'm glad that everybody here is part of that.
Me too. Hey, guys. All right. Traditionally, on the podcast, I do an outro song, a walk-off song that is, that's relevant to the subject of the podcast. And so I was hoping, we're not going to do this right now, but tonight, if it works in the IT, they're going to play my favorite gay pride anthem as the outro song. We'll see how that goes. But for the podcast listeners, I want them to hear your favorite gay pride anthem. So what should we send them off with this Colorado Gay Pride weekend?
It's Raining Men.
Oh.
Hallelujah.
A classic. It's Raining Men. All right. That is it, everybody. Thank you to Governor Polis.